Welcome to Holy Yoga Sunshine Running and Yoga. My name is Kim Holt, and this is my mom, Judy Wishman. She's going to be my model for today as I explain different yoga poses that you can try. First, we're going to start off though with just a light, slow, or short meditation. And the meditation is going to be based around a specific scripture. And so what I would like you to do is get into a comfortable seated position. You can just be on the ground, you could be on the couch, you could be on your bed, you could be laying on your back, you could be sitting in a chair with your feet on the ground. It's where you're comfortable to do your meditation. Meditation, there's no right or wrong way of doing a meditation. A meditation is going to basically involve you trying to just let go of thoughts in your head and center yourself so that you can be on your mat and not be worrying about what you got to do as soon as you're done with this exercise, anything you're doing. So it's to ground you, to get you centered so that you're able to stay focused on what you're doing and not have your mind go a million miles an hour. The verse I would like to read to you is Psalm 139, verse 14, and I'm reading it off of the Bible app out of the Passion Translation, which there's different translations of the Bible, and it's just kind of hard to explain, but they've done different translations because the words were interpreted from Hebrew, Greek, Arabic words, and from a long time ago, and so they are finding, as time goes on, as the archaeologists find more information, the Bible doesn't change, but the way that maybe you are hearing it or understanding the Bible, the way that God's wanting to speak to you, that may be a little bit different, but the words, and so He may use different words to speak to you. So I today am pulling out of the Passion Translation, which I really enjoy because it seems more current day wording than maybe the King James Version. Not that any of those versions are bad, I want something that's easy for me to understand and to be able to follow. So I invite you to get into a comfortable position. You can close your eyes. You can lower your gaze, looking forward into a spot, just paying attention to that spot. And what I want you to do is take some breaths in. Just take a long, slow breath in and release it. I'm going to do that again. Long, slow breath in. Release it. And what I want you to do is, when you're thinking about your breath right now, this is what kind of helps you to get into a meditative position is I want you to count to say maybe 5 when you inhale. Stop at the top, count to 5. And then release, counting to 5. Stop at the bottom. Hold your breath there. Hold that for 5. And I want you to do that. Let's try that for 3 or 4 times. Go ahead and inhale 5. Hold for 5. Exhale for 5. Hold for 5. And do that again. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. I want you to keep doing that, and while you're doing that, I want you to think about breathing in through your diaphragm, not necessarily just your chest. I want that breath to go all the way down through your chest into your diaphragm, bringing your diaphragm open. And when you exhale, I want it to go ahead and close and push the breath out through your nose. And when you're breathing in and out of your nose, think about the way the air feels coming into your nose. Is it cool? Is it warm? And just concentrate on that. And when your mind starts to wander, as our minds will do, and there's nothing wrong with that, you're perfectly normal, just come back to thinking about that breath and let that breath kind of help center you. And while you're doing that, I want you to think about this verse, Psalm 139, verse 14, in the Passion Translation. I thank you, God, for making me so mysteriously complex. Everything you do is marvelously breathtaking. It simply amazes me to think about it, how thoroughly you know me, Lord. Go back to that breathing. I want you to think about what might be standing out to you in that verse. And let those thoughts that are coming in that are not productive right now, go ahead and just let them go. And I'm going to read the verse one more time. I thank you, God, for making me so mysteriously complex. Everything you do is marvelously breathtaking. It simply amazes me to think about it, how thoroughly you know me, Lord. All right, we're going to continue trying to stay focused on breathing. Just go back to your normal breathing, though. You don't have to stop at the top or count your breaths. Just go back to your normal breathing. Just when you start to slip away and slip into the world of what I've got to do today, come back to that breath and think about that breath, and maybe pushing waves away with your breath and pulling the waves in with your breath. While you're doing that, I'm going to talk to you about the poses that I would like to show you today. So as we talked about before, this channel is being made so that people can feel confident going into a yoga studio someday if they want. They can work at home on their mat anytime. It's about being on your mat. And one of the reasons I became a yoga instructor was I went to a yoga class with my dad, and he was having some difficulties while he was doing the poses, and it wasn't that he couldn't do them, it was that you're in a yoga class and you're just moving from pose to pose to pose, and so it gets difficult when you're doing that to get into that pose. The more you can stay in a pose, the longer you can stay in a pose, and then you just your body gets to know the pose, the better you can do it, and your mind's not going crazy trying to think, oh, what am I going to do now? Where does my foot go? So I want you to learn, I want to teach you poses so that you know what they are when they come up in a yoga class, or we'll put them together. After a few videos, we'll put together a sequence that you can work and see what it's like to go through a whole sequence of posing. What you need to know, or what I think is important, are the three things that are important with yoga, no matter where you practice, is being on your mat, honoring your body, your mat, your space, and not worrying about anybody else's. So when you're on your mat, and your mind will do this, it'll start wandering and looking over and saying, oh, I can't do that pose, or what are they saying? And you have to look at the instructor, because sometimes we don't cue it very well, and you're like, what did that mean? I don't know. And sometimes we forget our left and our right, and so we're looking up to see what's going on, and that's totally fine. What we don't want to do is get on our mat, look around, and go, oh my gosh, that person's in a handstand, I can't do a handstand. That's okay. Your body doesn't have to do a handstand. We are doing what our body is allowing us to do. We are listening to our body, and we're also listening to what the doctors have told us. And if the doctors have said, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, then you don't do that. You have to listen to what you're instructed, so that you're safe and that you don't injure yourself, because the whole point of doing this is to be able to do this forever and to be healthy forever. So be on your mat and worry about what you can do and not what anybody else can do. We're all made differently, like we just talked about in the Bible. one of the things that was really brought to our attention in class was that, you know, some of us have long arms and can do certain poses because our arms are so long. Some of us don't have long arms, and so that pose may not be available to me, or it may not be available to me today because my body's really tight maybe, or my back's really sore today, and so I can't get into that pose, and I need to respect that and honor that. The other thing that's important in yoga is breathing. Just breathe. Just breathe. You don't have to breathe a certain way. You'll hear instructors say inhale here, exhale here. That's great, and you want to get to doing that. And but more importantly than anything is we don't want to hold our breath. Not that we're going to die. It's just that we're trying to use our breath to regulate our nervous system and calm us down, which is the point of yoga, is to just bring us into a centered place. And then the final thing I want to say about yoga and the poses, if you can do this particular specific thing, you're a great yogi. It doesn't matter if you can be in what's called a crow position, or you can be in a handstand or a shoulder stand or a full wheel position. If you can do this particular thing, which we'll talk about here in a second, you're an awesome yogi. Breathe and hold this posture throughout your yoga practice. You're a yogi. But you're a yogi no matter what. If you're breathing, just being on your mat and trying to center yourself on your mat. So with that, the key to yoga poses is to always have the same posture. So it doesn't matter if you're standing, it doesn't matter if you're in a fold position, it doesn't matter if you're sitting or if you're in a back bend. You always want to have your tailbone tucked under slightly. You want to have your ribs knitted in. So when you see, you'll see an anatomy class or picture will show you the ribs have muscles around them. You want to think about those muscles around your ribs and how you want to try and pull those in, okay? And then you want to roll your shoulders up. So, roll your shoulders up and then roll them back. And you might feel your ribs start to pop out at that point. You want to go ahead and make sure you're tucking your tailbone, you're knitting your ribs together, and you're rolling your shoulders down and back, keeping them down. Okay, there you go. And the last part of that is you want to keep your head over your ears, over your shoulders. So your head's going to be back, almost like giving yourself that double chin, which we love. You're going to have your head back, and it's going to be level. Your chin's going to be level to the ground. Your ears will be over your head. And this posture is the posture you want to maintain throughout your yoga practice. And it is not an easy thing to do. This may be easy right for the moment, but then when you get into doing your postures and your practices and you really get going faster, you easily lose that posture. So I will bring you back to it and I'll say, tuck your tailbone, knit your ribs, pull your shoulders down and back, keep your head aligned over your shoulders, and we'll call this proper alignment. So sometimes I'll say, remember to get into your proper alignment. Tailbone tucked, ribs knit, shoulders down and back, and head level to the ground and over your shoulders. Okay, from here, we're gonna, Mom is going to do what's called simple seating, and she's gonna come into what we all call as kids, what I'm doing, crisscross applesauce, and she's gonna sit on her mat in a simple seated position. Some people can't do this because it's hard on their knees. If it's hard on your knees, I would say bring out your feet in front of you further. That releases the tension on your knees. Other people feel like they feel more comfortable because their back's tight maybe, to just sit on top of a block, so or a blanket. So Mom, if you'll just sit right here on top of that. So you have the sits bones in your pelvis that you're going to use to sit on that block. And so how does that feel?
Much better.
Okay. And you're going to remember to keep your proper alignment. All right. And this is simple seated. And we do poses just from this. In fact, this will be ones that we would do a lot of warm-up poses and a lot of cool-down poses. So from here, maybe you might want to do a twist, because twists are really good for our internal organs. You would take, say, we'll take our left hand and place it on our right knee. And we'll take our right hand and place it behind us. And you may go like this, and that be as far as you can go in your twisted position. That's totally okay. Remember, every day can be different, but the most important thing is we're honoring who we are and what we can do. To go further into that pose, if you would like, you would inhale, lift up when you're inhaling, exhale, start to twist a little bit more, and that might give you a little bit more movement in your body. When you're doing this, you want to keep your sits bones, both of them, on the ground or on the block, however you have it. And you can come back to center. Inhale, come back to center. And we'll do the opposite side. So right hand on your left knee, left hand on the floor behind you. And then inhale to raise up, exhale to twist. So when you're doing that, if you're feeling any pain anywhere, like pain, don't do that. That's the rule for every single pose that we're gonna do. If you are in pain in your knees, like I said, go ahead and bring your knees out a little bit, or your feet out in front of you a little bit. You can, but however you want to sit in a simple seated, feel free to do. Mom, you can come back into the center. Thank you. From here, so that's simple seated. Remember, what are we going to do? We're going to keep our tailbone tucked. We're going to keep our ribs knit together. We're going to keep our shoulders down and back. And we're going to keep our head over our shoulders. The next pose we're going to do is called Child's Pose. This is a great resting pose. This is a pose that you should go back to if at any time you're like, I'm overwhelmed. Say you're in a yoga class. I'm overwhelmed. I can't do that pose. I'm tired. I'm thirsty. I'm sore. The Child's Pose and Downward Dog, which we'll do later. Child's Pose is a resting pose. And often you'll see people go into that pose. The rest of the class may be standing up doing Warrior 1 or Warrior 2, or they may be doing a headstand. But you'll see other people will go into this Child's Pose. This is an important pose for you to learn. So Mom, what I would like you to do is get onto your hands and knees, all 4 hands and knees. I'll take that block from you. Thank you. And what I want you to do from here is put your toes together, keep your knees out towards the edge of your mat, and you're gonna come back and rest your buttocks onto your feet. Perfect. You're gonna keep your hands out in front of you. Another way you could do this is you could put your hands straight out in front of you and really you're kind of like pulling the mat towards you, and that's really working back here in your lats and getting a good stretch through here. So use your muscles, keep your hands out, but use your muscles to feel like you're pulling the mat towards you, and you should feel the work right in here. That should feel good to you. If that doesn't feel good to you, let's modify that. One of the things that we could do, we'll say that your knees, again, because it is a very compressed position, we'll say your knees are bothering you. Let's put a bolster in here. So you just roll up a mat and go ahead and lift up, Mom. And I'm gonna put this bolster right under her legs, right under her knees. And she's just gonna sit there, and that should be more comfortable for her knees. And this should feel good, and you should be able to come into this position anytime, okay? Now, there's other ways that you can do this position. You can also bring your hands back behind you and just rest on the ground. You could also bring your hands back out in front of you, and I like to do this a lot, and you're gonna put your hands together in a prayer position and put them up over your head, keeping your elbows on the ground. You could do that. And then finally, I'm gonna pull this mat out. If you can come up for me a little bit, pull this mat out. And I'm gonna have you put your knees together. This is one way you can do it. Knees and toes are together, and then just come down onto your back of your ankles again. And once again, that's another way of doing Child's Pose. I personally, it is not comfortable for me that way, so I do it a different way. Again, it's your mat, it's your practice, it's your body. We're listening to ourselves. Okay, Mom, thank you. What I want you to do is go back into that all four poses, that tabletop position. So you're going to make sure you have your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips. So go ahead and spread your legs a little bit. There you go, knees under your hips. Not quite that much, your hips aren't that wide. There you go. And here, this is a really good warm-up pose. You're going to start this a lot of times with your classes. Is you want to have this flat back, and remember you're keeping your position, okay? And what I'm going to have her do is a cat position, which is going to raise up her back and it's going to lower her head. And on this position you would exhale and then come back down into a cow position where you're going to lower your back, like sagging it almost, and lifting the crown of your head up, and that's called a cow position. And you're just going to go through that. Up, exhale, inhale to cow, up, exhale, inhale to cow. From here, some of the things that you can do is you can keep doing that, but then start kind of moving your hips around, moving your hips from side to side. And like almost when you're going into cow, you move your hip and you go down into cow. No, you stay up on your four. There you go. Your back goes down into cow, your head goes up, but you're still moving your hips. Do you feel the stretch in your hips when you do that? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So go ahead, and then when I say come back to neutral spine, this is where you're just going to be straight. Your head's going to be up a little bit because you want it to be like it is. It should be even with your shoulders, okay? And that's called cat-cow, and this is called tabletop position. Okay, Mom. What I want you to think about, some people have problems with their knees in a position like this. Can you come back into that position for me? Mm-hmm. You can do a couple of things. You can take the mat and roll it underneath and put it under your knee, maybe, to give you a little extra padding. Okay, and you could do that on both sides. You can do that, you can put a blanket. A lot of times yoga studios will have these blankets that they use, and you can put that under your knees to give you some relief on your knees. Some people have problems with their wrist, carpal tunnel. So if you're having problems with your wrist, because this can be uncomfortable, you can come up on your fists. So make a fist, and well, it would help. You don't want to be wearing your rings when you're doing it because that might hurt, but just like that, yes, come up on your fist, the top of your knuckles, with your thumbs not inside your fist, and that should give you some relief and build up some strength in your wrist muscles. So those of you with carpal tunnel, arthritis, something you could think about. There's other options. You could also go ahead and I'm going to have her roll back for a second, and I'm going to put this mat back where her hands were. Just build it up just a little bit, like it's a blanket, and she's going to come down like this. Put your hands back out like they were, with the wrist on top and the fingers going over the edge. That should give some relief to the wrist as well. Okay? All right. Those are some of the modifications. You can come back to simple seated. Thank you. And if you have any questions, any suggestions, concerns, please let me know. Add a comment to this and I will definitely get back to you. And thank you for joining us.